Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. As you can see, this video is going to be a little bit different. I'm super excited about it though. I am actually going to walk you through how I approach wedding details at every single wedding. Doesn't matter how much or how little you're given, I tackle each and every wedding exactly the same way. So I'm going to walk you through client communication, I'm going to walk you through doing flat lays, and a little bit about the details that I don't necessarily have, like actual bouquet and the wedding dress. So those ones I'm just gonna have to explain to you as best as I can. Now, I know this is gonna be a lot of information, so strap in, and I'm gonna try and break it down for you as best and as efficiently as possible. So this is gonna be a long one. I wanna get started as quickly as we can, so let's go ahead and get started. First things first, before we even tackle any of the actual details, I want to talk to you guys about client communication. Now, regardless of wedding details, client communication is vital for having a really efficient and really smooth wedding day. That is, details aside, that's literally talking with them about everything. Now, my clients and I actually discuss wedding details 3 times. They don't necessarily know that we're talking about details the first time, but I get it in their brains that, yo, I love details, you should love details, they're important, this is why. So we actually talk about it right at our initial meeting. Before they've even booked me, they know that details are important and that they should be prepared for them. So when I'm discussing timeline with them, I just talk quickly about the time that it'll take me to do wedding details. Now, I actually allot an hour in that timeline, but I tell them that within that hour, I'm also running around and getting candids of the bridesmaids and getting her makeup done and stuff like that. So they don't think that I'm actually allotting a full hour to details, because 9 times out of 10, they'll nix that really quick. They don't necessarily know the necessity and the need for the wedding details and how much of a story starter it is, but by allotting that time to do a couple of other things, they think that that time is being used efficiently. It sucks, but that's the truth of it. So when we talk about it at our initial meeting, I'll just let them know, hey, this is when I will be doing your veil and dress and shoes and jewelry and invitation suite and your garter and any other small things that you want documented. That's when I will be tackling those. And that's where I leave it at for that initial meeting. I don't really dive into anything in particular, just an overall view of that time frame. Now, at our final meeting, which I host 30 days before their wedding date, I will talk to them in detail and actually ask questions about what they plan to bring, what I should expect from their wedding details, and that way it really gets them thinking about all the different things that they need to pack up and set aside for me. And then the third time that we talk about it is I send out a happy wedding week email, and I do that the week of their wedding date, and it's usually Monday because most weddings happen on Saturday, so I'll send it out on Monday, and that just goes over everything line by line that we discussed at our final meeting, but it actually gives them a physical list and a physical breakdown of who is in charge of it and where everything should be that will help me on the wedding day. And I'm actually going to include my Happy Wedding Week email template down below. So if you're interested in that, just click the link down below. You can copy it, put it into your CRM, and change up some verbiage that'll match your style. And that's there for you if you need it. So circling back to the timeline portion, I actually allot an hour on the timeline, but like I said, I'm also running around and doing the bridesmaids' candids, some of her getting her makeup done because it's usually happening at the same time. So in reality, I only have about 30 minutes for details. But that said, I arrive an hour early to every single wedding because depending on the location that she is getting ready, especially if you're getting ready at the venue, chances are you'll get pulled away by either the mother of the bride herself, or a wedding planner or a venue coordinator to come see something, to talk about something, and that actually eats into your detail time. So I quickly learned that by allotting an extra hour that my couples don't know about, they do now if they're watching this, then I don't eat into details if I'm pulled away, and that way I can also make my important introductions and my first impression without feeling rushed or constantly watching the clock. And if there's a wedding planner that I work with a lot that I know wants some epic details or is really, really impressed by something during the wedding or some kind of reception detail or something like that, then I will actually arrive 2 hours early. And that way I can really, really focus on the details for a full hour. Those types of weddings, they usually have multiple parts to their invitation suite. They also usually have really epic shoes and just a bunch of details in general. Those don't happen a lot. I mean, it's honestly like one out of the year that really happens with. But on the off chance that it does, I do arrive 2 hours early. That's on my own time. That's something that I schedule personally. The couples don't need to know about that until I arrive. And they're usually really, really excited when I do arrive that early. And I don't do that all the time. I know not every wedding allots for that, but that is something that I have done in the past. So let's talk about the actual start of the day. When I arrive, I'm usually greeted by either the maid of honor, the mother of the bride, or I'll go find the bride. She is usually set aside in a bag or in her shoebox, which is what I've discussed with her, in a corner next to her dress, all the details that she'll need for the day. That's invitation, shoes, jewelry, garter, old, new, borrowed, blue, veil, dress, whatever else she decides. I've had like memorial pins and brooches and all those kind of things. Whatever it is, it's in a bag or in the shoebox and near the dress. When I walk in, I'm already surveying where I'm gonna set up. I'm looking for a spot with ample natural light, but not direct sunlight. I don't want a lot of heavy rays coming in because that's gonna create a lot of really strange shadows on your flat lays. So you're looking for nice, soft, even, natural light, and you're gonna want a pretty big space. I've worked in really, really small, tight spaces, but as big of a space as you could possibly get. Honestly, I like to go outside if it's all possible. I don't drag everything outside if outside is really far away. I will make do with what I have, especially if we're in a really tight hotel room. Once she has given me everything and I have decided where I want to shoot, I've already decided on what flat lay mat that I want to use, whether it's a bridesmaid's dress, her dress, or a personal mat that I've brought from home. I've already decided that before I've arrived because I know the theme, because we've discussed that already. And sometimes I'll actually make that decision when I get there, even though I have already decided what I want to bring. If there's a really cool chair or a piece of fabric or even just a tablecloth that goes with the theme of the wedding, I will use that instead, just to keep the overall aesthetic the same. When I go to set up, I actually start by laying everything out first and just kind of visualizing what I'm working with, and then deciding what I have to bring in from my personal collection versus what she's given me to work with. Now, when I go through this with you guys, I'm actually going to shoot alongside the discussion so that I can put up the pictures of the examples of what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, because of the corona, I am not able to get a bouquet, so I went to Giant, just grabbed a couple bunches of spray roses, so I'm going to work with this as my bouquet and as my loose flowers. I've actually bought these and brought these with me to wedding days because I'm not always given loose flowers to work with, so these spray roses work really well just for a little bit of punch. I don't have a wedding dress to work with, so I'm going to just walk you through that as best as I can and probably show examples on the screen as well with what I talk about. So let's not waste any more time. I'm gonna set this up and I am gonna start shooting the flat lays. So first things first, please ignore the background noise. I am gonna have to walk around a bit and my mic is gonna pick that up, so I apologize in advance if it gets kind of loud. Let's pretend this is what I've been given. I've got 2 vow books. I've got a full invitation suite, which is a little bit bigger than most weddings, but this is a real wedding invitation suite. I've got some jewelry, not a whole lot of jewelry, and a lonely wax seal that came with the invitation suite. And then I've also got her shoes. Now, this is really what's usually given during any wedding day, save for maybe the vow books and the large invitation suite, but it really is close to what is given on a real wedding day. I've also got a veil that I'm going to use as well. As we know, I carry my own, but let's pretend that this bride actually gave me a veil as well. Now, as you'll notice, there is no ring box, there's no ribbon, there's no fun frilly stuff that's usually not given on wedding days. So I have my handy dandy kit that I'm gonna use, and we're gonna style this real quick. So when I first start with any invitation suite, I'm gonna lay it all out and see how many pieces I actually have. Let's see, they've given me some place cards. I've got the RSVP. Ooh, I've got a program and a invitation and a map. How cute is that? So we're gonna start. Now this is gonna be kind of big, so I'm gonna do this horizontally. I'm gonna do most of this stuff horizontally just because if I go vertically, then the screen is gonna go weird, but if I do shoot it vertically, I will show it in the slides. I have actually gone ahead and switched over to a 35mm on my camera. I know I said I was gonna shoot with the 35, but I'm just gonna make do with the 50 because you can't really see everything that I'm doing with that 50mm lens filming. So we're gonna start by setting these to the side. I've got just the 3 rings and some earrings and a bracelet. And when I first start, I'm going to lay out every single thing that she's given me because everything is super important. So even though she didn't give me any ring boxes, I'm gonna go ahead and go with this green and silver theme that she's got going on. So we're gonna put this guy in here, like so. And then I'm gonna take my makeup sponges and we're gonna get started. So I usually start with the invitation suite. And you know, I'm actually going to put some ribbon in this. And yes, the ribbon is super wrinkled and that's okay. You know, I'm actually gonna go with this nice brown color. We're gonna go with the neutral theme. And I'm doing this all real time so you can see exactly my thought process, even if I make a mistake and don't do something that I like. So when I start, I want to make a lead line that goes from one corner to another. That draws the eye from the whole suite and doesn't put the focus on one thing in particular. I usually start with the invitation being the tallest and in the middle, and then I'm going to take this super cute map and lay it like so. And then this actually has really pretty script on it, so I'm not going to do one of these. If this had no writing on it, I would do one of these just so that you can still get the envelope in there but not have to worry about the addressing. But since this does have a nice address on it, I'm gonna use it. So I'm actually gonna make this a little bit taller. And I don't like to just kind of leave things out in space like that. I like to connect them from one part of the invitation to the other. And this part, this has a wrinkle in it. It's making my life difficult. You know what? I'm gonna set something a little heavier instead to weigh it down. But notice how by stacking, you get a lot of really nice depth to it. And make sure these are... So see how this kind of pops up? I'm just going to fix that by placing something on top. And then, since this is huge like that, I'm going to connect the two just like that. And then this has a really pretty, I've used this quite a bit, so it's getting a little bit wrinkled, but this has a really pretty inside. Let's see if I can figure out how to put this in here without making it seem so large. Maybe we'll do something like that. It's different. And I do this at every wedding. I kind of lay things out and see how I like them, and then I go around and I change things if I don't. That's why you give yourself a little bit more time than necessary, because this part actually does take the longest. And I'm not a fan of lining things up. Like, I didn't like that too much, so I'm going to try and stagger this a little bit. Like that. All right, and then once I have this laid out like I like it, I go ahead and place all the little stuff. So I don't like when things end abruptly either, like this ribbon. So I'm gonna try and lay it down like that so that it comes off the page. If it ends up being covered up, it's totally fine. It just wasn't meant to be in the picture. I'm gonna put that there. And then we've got some earrings and a bracelet. I like to lay the bracelet underneath and kind of make another lead line coming out. And then I can also bring in another box for the earrings if I want. But since those are the same shape, I don't really like that. Maybe this one. Gives the earring something nice to sit in. Like that. Sometimes if there's something that won't lay down flat, I'll place like his ring on it. But since his ring's kind of so low, maybe I'll do something like that. And then gotta figure out where I'm gonna put these. Do I like them like that? All right, so I'm gonna start here, and then I'm gonna take a picture and see what needs to be fixed. So I'm gonna shoot this on a 50mm 1.4 Sigma lens, and I'm gonna have my aperture up pretty high. Since I have so many different layers, I'm gonna try and get as much as possible in the frame. So I want my aperture up to be around 5. My ISO is kind of high because I don't have a whole lot of light in here. And we're gonna see what it looks like. So, unfortunately, the one thing that I don't like in this is the ribbon. So I'm gonna try and take this out as carefully as possible. Let's try again. Alright, so once I have done all of this, I'm gonna then photograph these parts in sections. So since this did take the longest, I want to use this up as much as possible. And I have set it up, and I set up every single detail shot that is the full flat lay to be able to be photographed in sections as well. So this is a section, 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 just the invitation is a section. That's like, I don't know, 6 different shots in one that I will shoot horizontally and vertically. That way they can be paired really nicely next to this piece. If you notice, I have not added anything else to this flat lay except for the ring boxes. Granted, it is a very large suite. Not everyone looks like this, so there are times where I have to add in a little bit more to make it more substantial, but with this one, I didn't have to. And I chose not to include the shoes just because I think they are a little chunky and take away from it, so that was left up to my discretion. If I wanted to add in more flowers, I could. I like it just as it is. It is nice and minimal and clean, and it kind of matches the minimal feel of the invitations themselves. So from here, I'm gonna start pulling away different pieces. So like I will take out the vow books, and then I will take out the map and maybe the program, and then I'm just gonna leave I'm gonna lower this just a little bit and leave it as just the invitation and the RSVP. And this. And just super quickly rearrange everything so that another quick vertical shot. And I don't like that there is just another super quick vertical shot, just like this. And then we're gonna actually add in the Again, I've decided to keep this easy and minimal and not super complicated because the invitation suite is nice and minimal itself. All right, so that's out of the way. If I want to, if I have time, I can do a map shot, but what I'm gonna do actually is focus on the rings real quick because let's pretend we're running out of time. Now that I got the full suite together, remember I've got the different sections of the suite themselves as well. That's an extra 8 to 10 photos. Then I got the next vertical of just the important pieces, and now I'm gonna focus on the little stuff. You don't have to go crazy, just a couple shots of this and you'll be good to go. What I do with the rings is I actually use the invitation itself because there's a lot of information on here that is pertinent to the wedding. So we've got their names, we've got the location of the wedding, we've got the date, and then we've got this really, really pretty embossed greenery right here. There's nothing on the back, so I won't use the back. So what I usually do is I will focus on the names first, and I will set this up like so. And I'm gonna switch over to my 100mm macro lens for this. And I also need a little bit more light on the ring, so I'm taking the map that's folded and I'm just gonna set it up right here so that I can get a little bit more light on that ring, and I'm going to shoot this. I shoot all of my ring shots around 4.0 to 5.0 because I like to get all of the detail of the ring. That's just up to your discretion. That's how I like to photograph rings. I didn't like how it was positioned, so I actually set it up more in the middle. As you can see now, the names are surrounding it. If you still shoot this at 5.0, 4.5, 5.0, you will still get a very nice blurry background because the 100mm just allows for that to happen. So I went ahead and I got that both vertically and horizontally because it makes for a great album spread. Okay, so from here, I'm gonna take the rings and I'm gonna line them up so that the diamond is in the middle and close to the date, and they're all kind of on the same plane. Again, I'm shooting at 5.0, so I shouldn't have any issue. Set up my white card. If you can't tell from there, we've got a little bit of light that's on there. So then I'm gonna shoot it down here. So moving on from there, I can then grab the bracelet, and I kind of like to make a little like snaky with the bracelet, and then I'll just grab a side shot of the bracelet. All right, I went ahead and switched to a 50mm so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm doing a little bit closer. I'm just gonna take a couple of flowers and do one of my favorite shots where I snip off a few flowers, and I like to create some depth of field. So I will put a few flowers in the back, flower in the front, try and get ones that aren't brown like I just did, especially if they're gonna be visible. Let's put the more brown one in the back. And I like to, I'm a big fan of the ring setup like this, if you can't tell. That's why I'm kind of quick at it, because I do it all the time. Just takes practice. And I say that and I can't do it now. Then you take a flower, you place it in the front, and you just kind of stagger them so you end up eventually shooting through the flowers and making a really nice, creamy, dreamy, beautiful shot. So I set this up. I'm gonna take some of these brown leaves off. And I'm gonna get really low and shoot through the flowers. Now, that's just something that I like to do. You don't always have to do this, especially if you don't have time to set it up. Really just focus on what you need, and then if you have extra time, then you can play around. Move on to the shoes. So, if they don't have these epic, crazy epic shoes, then that's totally okay. You just kind of work with what you got, but don't put a whole lot of focus or time into them if they don't really care about them. So what I usually do is I will set up the veil if there's a veil. I really, really like how creamy, dreamy, and pretty the veil makes the shoes look. And then I will stagger them a little bit, just like that. And then I will set the veil up around. I'm gonna shoot this on my 35mm and see what happens. And then I've also put my aperture down to 3.2 so I can still get a lot of the shoe in focus without having to move around too much. So I'm just gonna lay these down like this, keeping the tool exactly as it is, and then I'm gonna shoot this from above. I don't really feel like I have to do any more than that. sometimes I also will pop the ring in right here and have the shoes be the background. I've not shot the Vow book, so I'm going to shoot that really quick. I'm going to just lay it right in the tool, just like so. And I'm going to bring this up and around. There's nothing written in these, so if there was something written in them, I would open it up. I would either lay the rings next to it, I would just get a close-up of one of them saying I love you or something cute and sentimental. I don't necessarily post those pictures because I think anything that's a note that's written should be kept private, but it is a really sweet way to showcase something that they said in the note and then putting it in their album if they want it. All right, so now that we're done with all the details, I'm going to walk you through how I go about photographing the wedding dress and the bouquet. Since I don't have a bouquet, I'm just going to talk you through it. I'm going to include some pictures as I go along with the wedding dress. As soon as I'm done photographing the invitation suite and all the small details, I'll move on to the bouquet and even the bouquet and the shoes. Sometimes I like to set up the bouquet with a really cute chair. We're not always gifted a really cute chair wherever we're getting the getting ready shots at. So if I don't have a chair, I'll set up the wedding dress and I'll actually hang the wedding dress backwards so that the train, the long part, hangs out just like this. And then I will put whatever chair that is around, regardless of what it looks like, underneath so I have a flat surface to work on and an elevated surface so I don't have to be on the ground, and I don't want the dress on the ground if I can avoid that. So when I photograph the bouquet, let's just say we're given a really cute chair, I will set the shoes up either just staggered or stacked on top of each other with the bouquet, and I'll put the bouquet behind it with the shoes right in the front. Focus on the shoes, focus on the bouquet, get both vertical and horizontal if you can. Then I'll take the shoes out and I'll just get a couple solo shots of the bouquet itself. Getting pictures of the bouquet as opposed to the shoes and focusing more on the bouquet than the shoes is going to help you a lot more in the long run, because all of those single shots of the bouquet are going to go back to the florist, and the florist is going to share them and put them everywhere, put them on their website, use them as inspiration pictures, and then possibly get you referrals later on down the line. So focusing a lot on the bouquet is very important. That's why I use the bouquet a lot of times in all the ring shots, all the jewelry shots, any type of flower that comes from the florist, they're more likely to use. Sometimes if the flat lay mat that I bring is big enough, I can lay the bouquet down on top of it and get a really uniform, pretty picture with the same backdrop that I've been using. So moving on to the dress, I will do the best that I can with the dress. That to me is the hardest part about photographing details, because we're really not given very many pretty opportunities for the wedding dress as opposed to creating pretty opportunities for the invitations and all the small details. So 9 times out of 10, I'm really just working with what I've got, and I photograph it just as documentation and not necessarily as advertisement. And I think a lot of people need to start thinking about it as documentation and not necessarily advertisement, because then you can get really, really discouraged and really frustrated when you're not given a lot of epic dress shots, because really 99% of weddings, you're not given epic dress shot locations. So when I tackle the wedding dress, I really just try and find a spot that has that ample natural light and a place to hang it. I do bring command hooks, but I try to use them as little as possible because I don't trust them and I don't want to peel the paint off of a really, really expensive venue's wall. So I'll try and find a place to hang it and a place that has some pretty good natural light, and then I'll just get a wide vertical shot and then an up close vertical and horizontal of the bodice with the hanger and maybe some up close details of any jewels or unique touches to the dress itself. Other than that, I don't really do a whole lot with the dress. I just, again, document it because it's there, and hopefully it makes a good pairing next to a picture in the album, but it doesn't always make the album, and my couples don't really notice or really care because her wedding dress is on in all the other pictures, and I think it's more flattering that way anyway. There is one thing that I do with the wedding dress, no matter who's wearing it, what size they are. I will take a clamp and I will clamp the back of the wedding dress so that it creates a more flattering silhouette. If you lay the wedding dress flat, it looks very, very wide. So when it's flat up against a wall with no clipping, it is very, very wide, regardless of your bride's size. Seeing a dress that's flat and wide is very discouraging, and your bride's probably not going to be very happy with how it looks because chances are they're not as big as the dress is making it look like they are. So I will take the rubber tipped clamps, you can get them at Home Depot, and I make sure I get the rubber tipped ones because they don't cause any damage to the dresses. And I will bunch up the back of the dress and clip it right in the middle of the waistline. That way it gives a nice hourglass figure to the waist and looks really, really flattering and really beautiful when it is hung up. The clip also brings the dress off the wall a little bit, about probably 3 inches or however big of a clip you're using, and it gives it a little bit more depth and more shape to the dress as well, which makes a really, really pretty dress shot regardless of the location that you're in. As far as locations go, I just look for a simple background. Most of the time I'll just hang it off the top of a door frame and go from there. And sometimes I'll have to throw my flash on. I try to avoid it as much as possible because it does tend to wash the dress out quite a bit and you have to bring those highlights down. But if I have to use the flash, I will. Other than that, I think I've pretty much covered everything that goes into my wedding day details. I've covered the full invitation suite, I've covered the bouquet, the shoes, and the dress. And from there, honestly, all I can tell you is just be creative, but be efficient. So create your own detailed timeline and detailed shot list. That way, going into every single wedding, you know exactly what you're going to shoot and exactly how you're going to shoot it. And that way you can move really, really quickly and not waste a whole lot of time on details or get overwhelmed or flustered, especially if they don't have a whole lot to work with. If they don't have a whole lot to work with, just document it, just do the best you can, don't get discouraged. That's really 90% of the weddings that are out there. You're gonna get very, very little in details. And I do still to this day, regardless of how much I advertise details and how much I tell people I love doing details, some people just don't care that much about them. And that's okay, because the wedding is not about you, it's about them. So that's the biggest takeaway I can give you, and also give yourself time. So a little bit more time in your timeline of your personal time to shoot the details, and you should be good to go. Thank you guys so much for watching this all the way through. I know this is a long video. I know that there was a lot of information. I hope you could see it all clearly and it kind of made sense to you. I do offer one-on-one detailed mentoring. If that's something that you're interested in, check out my website. I've linked that below. And I am also going to link down below a detail shot list that I use for every single wedding as well. So please don't forget to like and subscribe. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. I put out new videos every Thursday, and I can't wait to see you guys next week. Bye, guys.